Cover it up, if you would, just in the projector, that's fine. Thank you. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests. How many of you would say that in school or university that history was your favorite subject?
Not me.
More than I thought. This is good. I'm proud of you all. This is very good.
Second to math.
And physics. Now we're talking. We'll talk later. For those of you who said ew or did not put up your hand, I'm willing to bet I know why it was not your favorite subject. That's one possibility. More likely, history didn't really have a resonance with you. It didn't have any currency. You couldn't see what was in it for you. Why are you studying history? Probably it had no personal meaning to you. If you hear a story that does bring some personal meaning to history, maybe you'll change your mind. Let me share that story with you. William Edward Preece was born in September of 1869 in somewhere unpronounceable in southern Scotland. His birth certificate says, son of a miner. As a geologist, that's marvelous. Son of a miner. William Edward Preece and his family emigrated to southern Ontario in 1884, and a little less than a year later, young William sought to go west, young man, and seek his fortune, because the Canadian Pacific Railway, that beautiful steel ribbon, was being stretched all the way across this great land. He got on the train in southern Ontario, and he got off where the tracks stopped. The tracks stopped at a place called Lagan Siding in Alberta. Lagan Siding was on a flat bit of land right beside the Bow River in the beautiful Rocky Mountains, and it was at the bottom of a creek that drained a lake known as Ho-Num-Rana, I think. Lake of Little Fishes. You and I know it today as Lake Louise. And the first English person to see Lake Louise was a gentleman by the name of Tom Wilson, who was there 2 years beforehand in 1882. The west was being opened up by the railway running through. And when young William got off the siding at Lagan Siding, the dust had barely settled on his boots before a line boss spotted him, big, tall, strapping young lad of 16, and he hired young William as a water nipper. Great job title, isn't it? Water nipper. As you can probably imagine, what do you think a water nipper did? Bingo! He got water for the rail crew that was there. Lagan Siding was a very busy place at that time. There were hundreds of men laboring, pushing the railway through the mountains. How many people have driven from Calgary through Banff and through Lake Louise over across the mountains? It's beautiful now because there's a 4-lane highway that goes all the way through there. Highway was not there back then. So they were pushing through, and as they're pushing through, they're hacking down trees and leveling off the land because railways need to have flat ground. It took an absolute superhuman effort to clear through that bush and push the railway through. The job of the water nipper, young William, was to go and get water and bring it to the men who were working on the railway. I've been working on the railway. Oh, sorry, another story. At first, it was pretty easy because Lagan Siding was right beside the beautiful blue Bow River. Lots and lots of fresh, cold, yummy water. It was easy for him to just walk along, pick up a bucket, go, here you go, here, have some water. But even at that, there were hundreds upon hundreds of men and maybe 5 water nippers in total. So young William, he was running. He spent his day from sunrise to sunset just running with buckets of water in his hand. That was fine until they took a turn to the west and started working their way up the Kicking Horse Pass. Suddenly, the railway is going this way and the Bow River is going that way. This led to a problem for the water nipper. Water's here, people are there. It wasn't as easy as it had been before. Now, this strapping young lad of 16, he was really working. First of all, he had to find the water. It wasn't as easy as it had been previously. So he had to find waterfalls or lakes or pools or something, anything. And this was in the summer in the early part of the autumn. So if any of you have been up there in the summertime, it can get really, really hot. He's looking for water. He's finding it wherever he possibly can. And each mile that they went further up the Kicking Horse Pass, it just got tougher and tougher and tougher. The slope going up the Kicking Horse on the Alberta side is a nice, gentle slope. If any of you have driven, the Trans-Canada Highway just does a seemingly beautiful, graceful arc all the way to the summit of the pass. You get on the BC side, and it just drops. It's straight, it's steep, it's treacherous. For the crews who are putting in the railway, it was really challenging because now they're going downhill. There are people falling and breaking their legs. Fortunately, not young William. He didn't fall and break his leg, but finding his water and doing his job got tougher and tougher. The railway went basically straight down the slope to the bottom, to the Kicking Horse Valley, and that led to a whole series of other issues. In the future, when the trains started running, they would quite often hurtle off the tracks going down that hill, and there were a lot of train derailments, but that's another speech. They got down to the bottom of the Kicking Horse Valley, and things got a little bit easier for young William, our water nipper, and the rest of the crew. The road was pretty much flat the rest of the way, going through the Kicking Horse Valley, and finally his job was a little bit easier. His crew worked their way west to meet another crew that had come up the Fraser River Valley and the Fraser Canyon and worked their way east. And they met at a place called Craigellachie, which is another really cool name. That one's at least pronounceable. How many of you have ever stopped at Craigellachie and seen the historic marker for the driving of the last spike? Okay, therefore only a few of you would recognize this photograph. Or maybe, tell me, how many of you do recognize this photo? Have you seen this before?
Yeah.
This is the iconic photo of William Smith driving the last spike at Craigellachie, which is cool. And those of us who studied history and have gone through history and have been in the country for a while, you've probably seen this on more than one occasion. Somewhere in this crowd is young William Edward Preece. He was there at the driving of the last spike. A momentous, iconic moment in Canadian history. I knew young William Edward Preece, but not when he was young. And I never ever called him William in my life because it would have been very inappropriate. I called him Granddad. For the last 8 years of William Edward Preece's life, and for the first 8 years of my life, we lived under the same roof. I shared a house with my great-grandfather, my grandparents, and my mom and dad. Granddad, point of order, I have 7 to 9 minutes. I believe, thank you. But I appreciate your applause, it's very nice.
Consider yourself warned.
Granddad was in his 90s when I came along, in his early 90s. And you would think that somebody who had lived a fairly hard life, he was a railroader his entire life. His stint as a water nipper was just the beginning of a very, very long career at the CPR and a very, very hard job. You would think that somebody who was in his early 90s might be a little bit on the slow side, feeble perhaps, not full of energy. You didn't meet my granddad. He was as sharp as a tack right up until the end, although he would quite often act stupid to really make his sons angry at him. He was a great, great person. And this person who was here and part of history in Canada, was part of my history. He passed on in August of 1969. He was 1 month shy of his 100th birthday. I had the privilege of knowing this man and loving him dearly. William Edward Preece, son of a miner. Charles Darren Frew, great-grandson of a water nipper. Mr. Toastmaster.
That's very touching.